The Cyclura lewisi, or more commonly referred to as the Grand Cayman blue iguana, is a species of reptile that is endemic to the Grand Cayman island, situated on the western side of the Caribbean Sea. Being one of the largest rock iguana species, the blue iguana is distinctively recognisable for the blue coloration of the scales during the breeding season. Sexual dimorphism is clear within the species, with the males being larger than the females. From snout to vent, males grow up to 51.5 centimetres in length and have been known to exceed 10 kilograms in weight. The female blue iguana produces a clutch size of 1 to 22 eggs, depending on her age and size, and are buried beneath soft soil to avoid being eaten by predators.
Currently, most blue iguanas are found in protected areas of the island and are relocated into captivity for breeding purposes, with few remaining in the wild.
There are 3 protected areas: Queen Elizabeth II Botanic Park, Salina Reserve and the Colliers Wilderness Reserve, supporting 3 entire subpopulations, the largest of which is approximately 319 adults in the Salina Reserve. Previously, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature identified the species as critically endangered. However, with the population numbers rising, the blue iguana's red list status has now been determined as endangered.
The blue iguana is renowned as being the flagship species for the Grand Cayman Islands. Lots of conservation work is conducted to preserve a genetically diverse subpopulation of offspring, situated in 3 key protected areas across the island. With the setup for captive protected areas and the general maintenance of the species being rather costly, large proportions of the funding is generated through tourism, public sponsorship and partnerships with large zoological firms. Tourism is a significant contributor to the survival of the blue iguana, often used to raise public awareness and educate the local people of the importance of the species. Lots of the money obtained through tourism is put directly back into the conservation of the species. The Blue Iguana Recovery Programme conduct the necessary field research, protect the natural habitat and provide captive breeding facilities needed, based on income received through tourists. Some of the revenue acquired is also used in the preservation of other endangered endemic species, balancing the wild flora and fauna on the island and preventing the unnecessary extinction of other species. The tourism brought in by the blue iguana also benefits local people, as they can generate income from visitors to the Grand Cayman Island. In turn, local people are starting to revere the blue iguana, supporting its presence on the island and its importance as a flagship species. Indirectly, the blue iguana contributes to the dispersal of seeds through the consumption of foliage. Primarily herbivorous, much of the blue iguana's diet consists of fallen fruits and low-level vegetation. As the blue iguana regularly roams throughout the day, consuming vegetation, the dispersal of seeds via digestion and excretion occurs. This allows various fauna to flourish in spread areas around the iguana's habitat.
The blue iguana is faced with a variety of threats throughout their lifetime, with much of their current habitat changing. The impact of the human population growth on the island has resulted in the greater need for resources and land space, resulting in the loss and conversion of the blue iguana environment. Originally, fossil records from the Grand Cayman Island discovered that many of the blue iguanas inhabited the coastal periphery of the island. However, because of growing anthropogenic activity, the wild population began to occupy dry forests, shrublands and traditional fruit farms situated inland. Demographic changes of the human population on the island intensified, resulting in demands for more infrastructure and residencies to be established. Urbanisation, as a direct result, drove the blue iguana population away from areas of human activity and further towards the island's core. The transformation of the land has indirectly affected the environment that the blue iguana inhabits, with agricultural methods changing from fruit farming and crop harvesting to livestock management and production. More land space is required. Agricultural clearances, such as traditional fruit farms, are artificial but ideal habitats for many iguana species, yet are being converted into grasslands for grazing cattle. Herbaceous browse and fruit-bearing trees, habitats which are suitable for the blue iguana, are being disposed of to make way for more livestock grasslands, reducing the iguana's chance of survival due to the lack of appropriate vegetation available. Vehicular road access has become an area of concern for the blue iguana. Fast-moving traffic is brought into remnant blue iguana areas, increasing the likelihood of being hit when dispersing out of the protected areas or when encountering the fast-moving traffic. Mortality rates have risen consequently and furthermore intensified the decline of the species. Another anthropogenic impact which indirectly affects the survivability of the iguana species is the introduction of invasive animals on the island. Humans have introduced Norwegian rats, cats and dogs onto the island as companion animals, with many now becoming feral. The impact of these three invasive species has had a damaging effect on the blue iguana population. Many adults and juvenile iguanas are killed by feral dog and cat attacks annually, whilst the Norwegian rats cause mortalities or severe injuries to iguana hatchlings. As well as invasive animal introduction, humans have unwillingly introduced a large breeding population of the common green iguana, Iguana, onto the island of Grand Cayman. Native to Central South America, the common green iguana can be hard to differentiate from the endemic blue iguana. Although certain physiological and anatomical characteristics are easy to distinguish between the species, the introduction of the common green iguana has confused the public awareness effort for the conservation of the blue iguana species, often assuming that the two species are the same. This can have an adverse effect on population numbers of the blue iguana if the local people who conduct the census include the common green iguana, creating an unreliable source of information needed for the conservation of the blue. Competition between the two species is intense. With both species competing for the same resources, food availability becomes restricted whilst stockpiles become even more depleted. As terrestrial animals, the blue iguana does not compete with the arboreal common green iguana for nest sites, but when the two species come into close proximity with one another, there is a potential risk of hybridisation. Even though the blue iguana is protected under local legislation and housed within protected areas across the island, occasional illegal captures of the species do occur. Correct documentation and licences of the species is required when handling or transporting these animals. However, many are captured and sold into the pet trade.
The Blue Iguana Recovery Programme is the pioneer in blue iguana conservation. They have successfully set up multiple breeding facilities and also Head Start hatchlings for release. Based in the botanic parks, they encourage tourism and education of local people to further aid in the conservation of the blue iguana. They have worked in conjunction with the local government and the National Trust for the Cayman Islands to secure networks of protected areas for the iguanas. These protected areas are kept free from invasive species like dogs and cats, therefore reducing mortality of young and in turn increasing overall adult population numbers. Together, these organisations have ensured local laws have been put in place and enforced to ensure no illegal trade of Cyclura lewisi occurs. The blue iguana has also been listed under Appendix 1 of CITES, further protecting it from smuggling for the pet trade. Each organisation is working in synergy with the others to benefit as many people and iguanas as possible. The breeding in the Queen Elizabeth II Botanic Park originally started as pure conservation efforts, but has since proved an important funding strategy through the tourism that the iguanas bring. This funding is used to further improve and expand the conservation project. There are concerns that soon, conservation efforts will be slowed by limited space in the current protected areas. To ensure that a future wild population can be sustained, more links need to be created between larger protected areas that are suitable for the iguanas to inhabit. This could be problematic as lots of land is utilised by people, and ethically there is a debate to whether they would have to compromise or sacrifice their land use for the conservation of the blue iguana. The securing of more protected areas also needs to be carried out with some form of invasive species control. If there are still high numbers of invasive species still inhabiting the island, the mortality rates of future hatchlings may plummet and halt all progress made. This could be another ethical issue. How would the control of invasive species happen? How much would it cost? Is it fair to perhaps destroy hundreds of animals for the survival of another? Hopefully these questions can be answered in the future. For now, the Blue Iguana Recovery Programme and other organisations involved are carrying out well-run projects that are fueling the current increase in blue iguana populations. According to monitoring studies, the population of Cyclura lewisi is increasing. In 1936, the population of the blue iguana was estimated at around 250 adults. By 2002, these figures had dwindled to an estimation of less than 25 individuals. In 2009, the Blue Iguana Recovery Programme increased the number of individuals up to 175 through their breeding programme. Current wild population numbers are estimated at around 443 mature adults. This is estimated based on current surveys and releases from captive breeding and head starting programmes. This is a radical increase in the number of wild blue iguanas and is a positive outcome for the species. It has been estimated that within the next 3 generations of blue iguana, there could be up to 1,000 individuals living in the wild. With continued conservation efforts and hard work to gain further protected areas for the iguanas to inhabit, in the future, people of the Grand Cayman Island could see for the first time in centuries a stable wild population of Cycloroluisi.